Well, welcome to the San Diego Argonauts Sail Point races for 2012. Our Sail Point races are our monthly races here at Mission Bay Pond. We keep track throughout the year of these races and name ourselves a champion at the end of the year for each of the classes that sails. We've got the Santa Barbaras up right now. We're going to have 3 races today. I'm sailing that red boat that's right in front of your screen right now, 1326. And there's about, I think there's about 1 minute until the start of the race. The wind is out of the west, shifting occasionally out to the southwest. So that line you see, the start line between the two blue marks, is not quite a fair line. That far end is favored a little bit more. We're looking about due south right now. Now my thought for starting, we've got, I'm not sure, I think there's about 6 boats that we have today. My thought was the far end of the line is favored, but I see the wind's a little lighter down there. You can see it's a little slick. So my strategy is to try to be at the middle of the line and at speed and tack onto port as soon as the gun goes off. There was the ding for the gun going off, so as soon as I got my boat moving, I tacked onto port, and we're going to freeze this video right here. Okay, so because I was further down the line and tacked, I am now clearly ahead of the boats that are at the near pin end. And I think the boat that's right at the pin right now is just in the process of tacking over to port, but even after he completes that tack, I will be several boat lengths ahead of him. Now there is also another boat at the far end of the line. He started all the way at the far end of the line, so he got the most advantage by starting at the favored end. But I thought the wind was a little light up there. I saw that water being a little bit shiny, so I decided not to be up there. I wanted to be a little more conservative, just start right in the middle of the line. So this will be good to see how this plays out. If that wind fills in for him, he's going to do just fine. If the wind gets a little light, I think the wind's better in the middle of the pond here, and we'll see how the boat speed works out. Okay, so let's continue on with the video now. Okay, so just about everybody is tacked over to port. There we go, all 6 boats now on port. We're working our way up the pond. Now that boat on the far side, look at that nice air that he's got over there. Even though that water's a little shiny, he's got good boat speed. He's sailing nice and high. He's in a wonderful position. I'm getting a little headed, as are the boats that are behind me. And note the difference in the wind. Again, looking to the right of the screen, the right side of the screen, number 10, the Santa Barbara on the far side of the pond. He's got some good air, sailing nice and high. Now I've got a little bit of a lift going here. My wind's a little light, so this wind's up and down a little bit. This is the first races of the day, and I'm starting to get into a little bit of shallow water here, so I'm gonna have to bail out at some point. I'm walking right along the edge of the pond. So there's my tack, and you can see what a wonderful position number 10 has. He made out just fine, so he's clearly now the boat to go try to catch. I went out a little bit, got a little bit of a header, decided it was time to go back on port. Air's pretty light here. This is a little bit brutal. There's a little bit of air filling in. Got the boat moving. In this lighter air, I try to let my sails out just a touch. Don't want to be trying to point to Santa Barbara. As I've mentioned before, it's a heavy boat. Get the boat moving, and then pull the sails in and try to do a little pointing. With the Santa Barbara in this lighter air, you need to have those sails out just a little bit. And there's a little lapse of judgment on my part. I put the boat aground in the mud, ran in, gave it a little shove to get it off.
Yeah, that's okay.
We got some good wind coming in from the right, not good wind, but at least some wind. Up, got headed, boat stood up. There's another puff coming in. I'm just trying to work my way up and get around the weather mark. couple boats coming in behind. You can see the weather's pretty light. There's our Commodore mark. That next mark is an offset mark, just keeps the boats going downwind from getting too involved with the boats working up to weather. That's always a good idea to have an offset weather mark. And I'm around the mark now. I'm in second place. Boat in the lead's not going too fast. That wind, the apparent wind, is pretty much from the south, so basically it's a beam reach, although we're not moving very well because the wind is so light. And I think if you've seen my videos before, my usual strategy is try to get to the weather mark in good shape. Have a good start, good clean air, sail on the lifts, get to the weather mark in good shape. The rest of the race pretty much will take care of itself if you're doing those things. Now the good news is that number 10, the boat that was in the lead, well, good news for me, he sailed down a little bit lower, and again that wind is coming from the far shore, so I've got clear air and I'm the first to get that wind, and I'm sailing a little bit higher, which in this light air does make, I think, a significant difference. So number 10's got himself, by working down, he had slower boat speed. We gave him a little bit of bad air, probably not a lot, but a little bit, and that's taken its toll on his position. So we're just going to eke out the rest of this race here. I think at this point you've got a number of pointers from the first race. We're going to move on and move on to the start of race number 2. Okay, we're about 30 seconds away from the start of race number 2. The wind has pretty much stayed the same, 6 knots or so. The far end of the start line is the favored end. We only have 6 boats racing, so we've got plenty of room on the start line. My objective, again, my goal, be at the middle of the line at speed. Plan to tack over to port if this wind holds out of the southwest, making the far end clearly the favored end. About 7 seconds till the start. Okay, now that wind had shifted back to the west more. That line was pretty much a fair line when the gun went off. You saw a couple boats at the near pin end go over onto starboard. And a little port and starboard tacking going on. Everybody's bunched up pretty well. We've got pretty good air right now. So at the last minute, just before that start, the wind did shift to the right to make that a fair starting line. So the boats that stayed on starboard, started at the near pin end, did just fine. You can see we're pretty well bunched up right now. I am the red boat you cannot see. I'm on the far side of the 3 boats on the left. I've got red corners on my sails. It's a red hull. And I'm in pretty good position. I've got some pretty good speed going on here. I'm trying to let my sails out just a touch so I can drive. And I'm probably trying to drive down a little bit to give bad air to the boats down below me. I'd like to be able to give them bad air and cause them to have to move back behind me. I'm getting into some shallow water, and in the last race you saw I had to run out and push my boat off the shore after putting it around. So I'm going to try not to do that this time. I called for sea room, tacked over to starboard, and I've got clear air, which in these lighter air conditions I think means quite a bit. I think it's worth quite a bit. That was a quick glance up to the weather mark. It's hard to read this air. There is just not a lot of air here, so the boats are moving pretty slow. I'm looking at the water, looking at those ripples to figure out what direction that wind's coming from. It does shift around. Here's a port and starboard. Let's see what's going to happen. I figured I could not tack and make the mark, so I decided to duck, which is always the good conservative thing to do. Do not be afraid to duck a starboard tacker when you're near the ley line. So I went a little bit high. Now I've got the boat around. I'm trying to get it moving. So I've got my sails out of touch. Once I get the boat moving, I'll start pointing up a little bit. There we go. You can see me pointing up. I got enough boat speed to carry me around, even if the wind were to die at that point. The rest of the boat's coming around. So I'm in second place. I've got clear air. I met my goal of a reasonably good start, although we did have a wind shift at the start. I wound up in pretty good shape with the weather mark. So again, lighter air, Santa Barbara heavy boat. Don't try to bring those sails in too tight, leave them a little bit loose, work on boat speed. And as we round this offset mark, that wind has again gone out of the south, so this is kind of a reach. You can see we've got our sails out a fair amount, and this is a little bit of a parade right now. Okay, let's go on to the third race. We're going to break off here and we'll catch the start of the third race. Okay, here we are at race number 3. Wind's pretty much the same, shifting around. That start line can be a fair line if the wind is shifted to the right, coming right out of the west. But generally, the wind has been out of the southwest, making the far end the more favored position. Now I want to make sure I've got some clear air at the start line, and we've got maybe 15 seconds until the start, so I'm trying to get my boat moving. There's a nice puff. Get my boat moving, get some clear air. Now, I was fairly close to the line, but not a good start for me, and because there are boats up to weather of me, I did not have the option to tack to port when I would like to, and I am expecting that wind to shift out of the left and want to tack over to port to get lifted up and head toward the weather mark. Everybody's staying on starboard, certainly the right thing to do with this wind. I don't expect the wind to hold.
The red boat's going to need to come off the beach here in a minute. Red boat's coming off the beach.
That was me walking along the edge of the pond and running into a rowboat with my shins. Not a very nice thing to do. Got to the far side, called for sea room.
Yeah, fine. Get new shins for Christmas.
So the majority of the boats are now going over to port. That wind has held out of the west.
I don't think that's a little boat in front of us without numbers.
I agree. I agree.
That's us harassing one of the other boats who's looking pretty good. He just didn't have any numbers written on his sail. And certainly that's fine. Now you can see I'm getting lifted a little bit. I'm getting some, either I'm getting some wind that they didn't get, or I headed up because of that lift and they did not. Maybe they didn't see it. In this lighter air, I will tell you, my eyes are glued on my telltales on my jib. Want to make sure that those are streaming back, and that I've got things trimmed up pretty well. Once the boat starts heeling a little bit, I'll pull those sails in all the way. Wind's light, I'm letting those sails out a touch, get the boat moving. And I'm just adjusting my direction right now, just to keep the boat on the wind. Again, it's a little bit light. It's changing direction. You can see I'm headed fairly well on port right now. Telltales are streaming pretty nice. Got nice air here. Got good heel on the boat. Driving into some shallow water. Again, I'm going to have to tack out. Don't want to go aground like I did in the first race.
All right, let's see that lid now.
Okay, that was a pretty good tack. Had maintained pretty good speed through it. Nice heel on the boat now, so we got some good air. Here's a port and starboard. What's going to happen?
Tacking inside 5 boat lengths, Commodore.
This is an interesting rules situation for the rules corner.
I do. I hit you, and I hit the mark.
Okay. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, I think, in the rules corner. That boat ahead tacked within 4 boat lengths of the mark. So
that's a good.
At that point, I can ask for inside room, even at the last minute. Inside room to the mark, because I had better speed. He was still accelerating. So I think I was in the right of way there, and I think we did touch. I think I said that I hit the mark and I touched him as well. So again, I'll try to go back to this one and do a little rules interpretation on it. You can see the wind's still light. We're in a broad reach at this point. This is a little bit painful racing in conditions like this, but sometimes you get in light wind, and it's good practice. You want to do well in regattas, you do have to know how to sail your boat in the lighter airs. So
You don't have any right of way.
I had an okay start, not great. I was not able, I did not have the ability to tack when I wanted to, but there were no big headers, so I didn't need to tack, so that kind of came out okay. I only tacked when I got to the far end of the pond and I needed some sea room. So the strategy, keep your clear air, keep the boat moving, know your rules. Okay, that's going to do it for the Santa Barbara races for today. Hope you've picked up some tips. I'll try to get back to this video and talk a little bit about the rules interpretation at that weather mark. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you at next month's Sail Points for the Santa Barbara.